Have you ever wondered why some experiences in life feel like they completely break you before they make you stronger? Have you noticed that true transformation often comes from loss, failure, or moments you cannot control? And have you asked yourself why certain symbols like Lord Shiva appear not in celebration, but in stories of endings and destruction? These questions are not just philosophical. They connect deeply to how humans understand change, identity, and awakening. Across ancient texts, particularly the Shiva Purana and other Shaiva scriptures, Shiva is rarely shown as a child or as beginning anything. Instead, he appears in moments where certainty collapses, illusions end, and people are forced to confront the truth about themselves. In these narratives, birth is not about the start of life. It is about emergence through endings, about awakening when the familiar structures of existence fall apart. This is why Shiva is often associated with cremation grounds, silence, and destruction, spaces where no comfort survives and where humans are stripped of distraction. The symbolism is powerful. Awareness only rises when illusions die, when excuses no longer work, and when the mind faces reality without cover. Modern experiences echo this pattern. Breakdowns, failures, sudden losses, and unavoidable changes are often the moments when people grow the most. Understanding Shiva, in this context, is not about religion alone. It is about recognizing universal patterns of transformation, the moments that challenge us to face what we cannot ignore, and the awareness that arises when control ends. Stay with us through this video, because by the end, you will see a perspective on Shiva that is rarely explored, a perspective that links ancient myths to modern human experiences in a meaningful way. If you enjoy insights like this and want to explore more layers of understanding, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel so you can continue this journey with us. Life often feels like it follows a plan until the moment it doesn't. When everything seems under control, people rarely pause to notice the deeper truths of existence. According to ancient Shaiva traditions, especially texts like the Shiva Purana, transformation does not happen during comfort or celebration. Instead, it emerges when plans collapse, when expectations fail, or when humans face sudden loss or destruction. In these narratives, Shiva appears not as a child, not in the safety of beginnings, but in the moments when control ends and reality becomes unavoidable. These stories show that birth, in the truest sense, is not simply the start of life. It is the emergence of awareness through breakdown, when old identities, attachments, and illusions fall away. Modern life reflects this pattern in subtle ways. People often describe feeling reborn after failure, heartbreak, or unexpected change. The moments when we cannot rely on our routines or the structures we've built are precisely when we are forced to see ourselves clearly. Shiva's connection to destruction highlights a universal principle. Creation is easy, but ending false beliefs or attachments requires attention and courage. He rarely starts events or builds worlds. Instead, he removes what is no longer true or useful. This is why, in mythological accounts, he is often found in places humans avoid: cremation grounds, remote mountains, or silent wilderness. These settings are not meant to frighten, but to strip away distractions, leaving only raw awareness. In practical terms, the experience of loss or failure serves the same purpose. It removes illusions, forcing people to confront who they really are. The idea is that only when certainty dies does a new understanding emerge. By observing these stories, we begin to see a pattern. Humans only feel truly alive when the familiar structures collapse. This does not mean we must seek suffering, but it does suggest that growth is linked to moments beyond our control. Ancient texts, modern psychology, and everyday experience all point to the same truth. Transformation comes from the unavoidable, from endings rather than beginnings, and from the courage to face reality without excuses. Shiva's connection to destruction is not just a mythological theme. It reflects a profound human truth about awareness and transformation. While many stories in Hinduism focus on creation and beginnings, Shiva rarely appears as a builder or initiator. Instead, he emerges to end illusions, attachments, and false identities, showing that true awareness often comes when something is removed rather than added. Ancient texts, including the Shiva Purana and other Shiva scriptures, consistently portray him in moments of dissolution, the fall of a kingdom, the end of a battle, or the collapse of false pride. These moments of ending are when humans notice him most, because endings force confrontation with reality in a way that beginnings rarely do. Creation is easy in comparison. Anyone can start something new, but seeing clearly what no longer serves us requires honesty, courage, and sometimes suffering. The symbolism of Shiva as the god of destruction also highlights the way humans perceive change. He does not appear in festivals or stories of joy. He is present in silence, in cremation grounds, in wilderness, places that remove comfort and force reflection. In these spaces, old identities, attachments, and illusions cannot survive. Modern life mirrors this pattern. People often report that their greatest moments of clarity come after loss, failure, or disruption, when routines collapse and familiar frameworks no longer function. These experiences, difficult as they are, strip away distractions and allow a deeper understanding of self and reality. By ending false beliefs and attachments, Shiva's presence illustrates that growth often follows endings, not beginnings. This perspective offers a different way to view human transformation. When illusions die, awareness is born. When false identities crumble, self-honesty emerges. Shiva teaches that noticing endings is not negative, it is essential. Birth, in the deepest sense, happens when what we rely on disappears, forcing us to confront reality without cover. By studying these stories and symbols, we can better understand the patterns of change in our own lives and appreciate that endings are often the doorway to awareness, wisdom, and clarity. Transformation, whether in myth or in modern life, often begins with truth. In Shaiva traditions, Shiva is closely linked to moments where self-deception becomes impossible, where the masks people wear fall away and inner honesty is unavoidable. Ancient texts like the Shiva Purana show him appearing not in comfort, celebration, or in places that provide reassurance, but in silence, in ash-covered cremation grounds, and in spaces where ordinary distractions vanish. These settings are not just symbolic, they represent the kind of environment that forces people to face reality without excuses. In practical terms, it reflects a universal human experience. The moments when we can no longer lie to ourselves are often the moments that change us most. When humans are confronted with undeniable truths, old identities and attachments cannot survive. Shiva's presence in mythological narratives emphasizes this process. He is not there to guide, reward, or punish, but to reveal. Silence, solitude, and exposure to mortality create a space where comfort disappears, leaving only raw awareness. In modern life, these same principles can be seen in times of crisis, failure, or sudden loss. People often describe these moments as uncomfortable or even painful, yet they also report that such experiences produce profound insight, self-clarity, and sometimes a sense of rebirth. Awareness grows when excuses no longer protect us, when the illusions we have relied upon dissolve, and when there is nowhere to hide from reality. This connection between Shiva and unavoidable truth teaches an important lesson. Transformation is rarely gentle. It requires confronting the aspects of ourselves we prefer to ignore. Mythology, psychology, and everyday experience all point to the same conclusion. Honesty with oneself is a kind of birth. It marks the moment when personal growth begins in earnest, when the mind sheds the layers of illusion that cloud perception. Recognizing this pattern allows us to see endings, silence, and solitude not as punishment, but as opportunities for insight. Shiva, in these narratives, is a reminder that clarity often comes from loss, and that inner honesty is the true beginning of awareness. Most gods in mythology have childhood stories that explain their personality, their abilities, or their connection to the world. These narratives comfort the human mind, showing growth, learning, and progression. Shiva, however, stands apart. Ancient texts, including the Shiva Purana and the Linga Purana, do not give him conventional childhood stories. Instead, he appears fully formed, often in situations that challenge humans to confront reality rather than to find comfort. This absence is meaningful. It signals that Shiva is not about gradual growth or gentle guidance. His presence is clarifying, not nurturing, and it invites people to see life directly without the protective lens of childhood innocence. In this way, he represents the immediate confrontation with truth and reality, bypassing the usual stages of learning or development. By not having a childhood, Shiva emphasizes that transformation does not always follow a familiar or comfortable path. Human beings tend to seek reassurance in origins, timelines, and explanations. Myths of a god's youth often give a sense of linear growth and progression, which makes the divine relatable and predictable. Shiva refuses this pattern. He does not grow in a way humans expect. He does not follow a timeline. This refusal reflects the broader principle found in Shiva philosophy. Ultimate awareness and awakening are not tied to age, experience, or conventional development. Instead, they arise suddenly, often triggered by endings, loss, or moments when control is impossible. This idea also has a modern mirror. In life, change rarely waits for readiness. People often confront profound truths suddenly, without warning, and without a gradual introduction. These moments can feel disorienting or frightening, yet they are precisely the situations that bring clarity. Shiva's lack of childhood stories teaches that the process of awareness is not always comforting or sequential. Growth is not about following a safe path. It is about facing reality directly, even when it is uncomfortable or disruptive. By understanding this, we begin to see why Shiva's myths are structured the way they are. They encourage reflection on how humans resist change, rely on comfort, and seek predictable growth. Shiva's presence challenges that pattern, offering a model where clarity, honesty, and awakening are immediate and unavoidable, rather than gradual and reassuring. Humans have a deep-seated fear of change, especially when it feels irreversible. We look for beginnings, timelines, and predictable paths to make sense of life. This is why questions like, "Where is my life going?" or "What will happen next?" are so common. Ancient Shiva texts, such as the Shiva Purana, show that Shiva's presence challenges these assumptions. He does not follow timelines, does not arrive according to expectations, and refuses to fit into the human desire for predictable beginnings. In mythology, People often encounter him in moments of sudden loss, destruction, or endings. These encounters force humans to confront the reality that not everything in life can be controlled or anticipated. This refusal to conform to human timelines can create discomfort, yet it also opens the space for true awareness. Birth, in the context of Shiva, is not tied to a specific moment in history or in a life cycle. Instead, it occurs in the psychological space when certainty collapses. People often fear this type of change because it cannot be prepared for. Unlike other gods or cultural figures who appear in comforting, linear stories, Shiva appears where transformation is unavoidable. This idea is mirrored in everyday experiences. Sudden life changes, failures, or disruptions often push people into a state of reflection, forcing honesty and clarity that gradual or predictable growth rarely achieves. Ancient myths use Shiva to highlight this pattern. His presence reminds humans that personal growth and insight are not always gentle or linear. They are often abrupt, challenging, and beyond control. Modern psychology supports a similar idea. Research shows that humans experience significant personal growth during moments of crisis or unexpected change, precisely because familiar structures collapse and leave space for reflection. These moments create a heightened awareness that cannot be achieved through comfort alone. Shiva symbolizes this principle, showing that awareness, honesty, and awakening come when certainty ends, not when life is orderly or predictable. Understanding this perspective allows us to reconsider our fear of the unknown. By observing how Shiva appears only when change is unavoidable, we can see that true growth often requires surrendering control, facing uncertainty, and embracing moments that feel irreversible. In this way, the myths are not just stories. They are guides for navigating life's unpredictable nature. Shiva is often associated with places humans tend to avoid, and this symbolism carries a profound lesson about awareness and transformation. Ancient texts, including the Shiva Purana, describe him dwelling in cremation grounds, mountains, and remote wilderness, spaces that strip away status, distraction, and comfort. These settings are not chosen for dramatic effect. They represent environments where superficial concerns vanish, leaving only raw reality. The cremation ground, in particular, symbolizes the impermanence of life and the illusion of social and material identity. Here, nothing can hide from truth. Shiva's presence in such spaces shows that birth, in the spiritual or psychological sense, does not happen in abundance, comfort, or distraction. It happens in emptiness, when the mind is forced to confront reality directly. This idea is reflected in everyday human experience. People often report profound clarity during moments of solitude, loss, or disruption. Just as Shiva's myths place him where comfort is absent, humans often awaken to deeper understanding when external distractions disappear. Modern psychology supports this as well. Research on mindfulness and crisis recovery shows that people achieve heightened awareness during periods of reduced external input or forced reflection. By removing ordinary comforts and routines, the mind begins to focus on what is truly important, revealing insights that are otherwise difficult to access. Shiva's presence in these avoided spaces also emphasizes the connection between destruction and growth. Where humans see endings, emptiness, or loss, Shiva demonstrates that these conditions are fertile ground for transformation. Awareness emerges only when distractions vanish and certainty dies. In this context, the mythological imagery is not meant to frighten, but to highlight an essential pattern. Spiritual or psychological birth requires facing emptiness and impermanence. By understanding Shiva's association with these places, we can see that personal growth is rarely nurtured in comfort or distraction. True awareness arises in spaces where habitual thinking is interrupted, illusions are removed, and familiar supports are gone. This perspective encourages reflection on how humans often avoid uncomfortable truths and how embracing emptiness, stillness, and loss can lead to awakening. In the presence of Shiva, or in the symbolic space he represents, people discover insight, honesty, and the possibility of transformation. Shiva's birth, unlike that of most gods or human beings, is not tied to a place, time, or ritual. Ancient texts, including the Shiva Purana, suggest that he is born only in one very specific space, when certainty dies. This means that temples, ceremonies, or formal timelines are not where his true presence appears. Instead, Shiva emerges in moments when answers collapse, illusions fall away, and humans are forced to confront reality directly. These are moments where belief alone is no longer enough, where certainty gives way to awareness. By framing his presence in this way, the myths emphasize that true awakening or insight is not something that can be scheduled, predicted, or controlled. This principle is reflected in human experience as well. People often achieve the deepest clarity when familiar structures fail, when routines break down, or when external assurances disappear. These moments are irreversible. Once certainty collapses, there is no going back to the comfort of unquestioned assumptions. In this way, Shiva's birth represents more than a mythological event. It symbolizes a universal human process of transformation. Growth, insight, and self-understanding arise only when distractions vanish, illusions die, and old patterns are no longer sustainable. Shiva's presence also highlights the difference between belief and awareness. Belief can exist in comfort, in order, or in predictable routines. Awareness, by contrast, emerges only in spaces where certainty and control are gone. This explains why Shiva is associated with cremation grounds, mountains, and remote wilderness. These environments remove distractions, strip away status and social identity, and leave humans face to face with reality. In psychological terms, this mirrors moments of crisis, loss, or deep reflection, situations in which we are forced to confront ourselves without escape. By understanding this perspective, we see that transformation is not gradual or guaranteed. It is sudden, unavoidable, and often uncomfortable. Shiva is born not in abundance or celebration, but in emptiness, collapse, and uncertainty. These myths encourage reflection on how humans resist change, cling to certainty, and seek predictable outcomes. Recognizing that awareness arises only when certainty dies allows us to view endings, loss, and disruption not as threats, but as opportunities for insight and growth. In these moments, humans encounter what Shiva represents: clarity, honesty, and awakening beyond the structures of ordinary life. Shiva's story shows us that true transformation does not happen in comfort or through predictable paths. Ancient texts like the Shiva Purana show that he is not born according to time, ceremony, or ritual, but in moments when certainty ends, when old beliefs and illusions fall away, and when humans are forced to face reality directly. His presence is often found in silence, cremation grounds, and remote wilderness, places that strip away distraction, status, and comfort. These spaces, and the stories about them, illustrate a simple but powerful principle. Awareness and growth emerge only when distractions vanish and illusions die. This pattern is reflected in everyday life. People often experience the most clarity, insight, and personal growth during times of loss, failure, or sudden change. These moments, while uncomfortable, are similar to the environments Shiva inhabits in mythology. They force honesty with oneself, remove excuses, and create a space for understanding and self-reflection. The absence of comfort is not meant to harm, but to awaken. Just as Shiva appears fully formed, without childhood stories or gradual growth, transformation in human life often comes suddenly and without preparation. By seeing Shiva in this way, we can better understand the value of endings, loss, and uncertainty. They are not setbacks or punishments. They are opportunities for insight and awareness. Birth, awakening, and clarity happen not in abundance or comfort, but in emptiness, collapse, and the absence of certainty. Ancient myths, modern psychology, and everyday human experience all point to the same truth. Growth is born from moments that cannot be ignored, and awareness arises when the familiar structures of life fall away. Shiva does not need a beginning, but humans need moments that break them open. These moments may be called awakening, loss, or insight. They are the times when people encounter what Shiva represents: clarity, honesty, and the possibility of true transformation.